What exactly does this mean?
So we'll start with the second decision, which is the most immediate. It came out about 15 minutes ago. This was a decision where the full ITC was reviewing a administrative law judge's decision. That decision said that Apple did infringe a patent, but that judge actually refused to issue a sales ban, and a sales ban is sort of the special relief that the ITC can grant. The ITC reviewed that. We were thinking we might get some sort of analysis of whether a sales ban was appropriate given these sort of underlying 5G concerns that pushing Intel out of the chipset market would sort of diminish U.S. competition in the chipset market. The agency entirely sidestepped that. They just said they ruled that this Qualcomm patent was invalid, so the case was over. It didn't reach those sort of sticky 5G issues.
Meantime, Mark, just before this, another judge recommended a ban, saying Apple did infringe a different Qualcomm patent. So how do we take these two rulings together?
So these are two distinct...
Mark, take that one.
These are two distinct patents, both related to Qualcomm patents in regard to battery technology and making batteries in phones last longer. Now, the two cases were at different points in the process. This was the final agreement on the one that just broke about 15, 20 minutes ago. The other one from earlier today around lunchtime was earlier in the process, and that was a judge's initial view on it. This will still go to the higher court in the ITC for a final ruling. The impact here would be specifically likely on the iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus, which are due to be discontinued probably this year or next anyways, but it still would have a multi-billion-dollar impact on Apple if they had to stop selling the 7 and 7 Plus in the US.
So, Tamlin, what then happens next with this, where the judge has made this initial recommendation and not on the side of Apple?
Right. So I think, as Mark alluded to, we have a July 26th, I think, is when the ITC is going to review this decision. It's where it's slated to give its final ruling on this. After that, if it recommends a sales ban on these iPhone models, then there's actually a 60-day presidential review period where the administration could decide whether or not it would allow a sales ban to take effect. And it could overrule that. And then so we could potentially be looking at a sales ban by late September if this all went in Qualcomm's favor.
Now, Mark, give us a little bit of an overview. Obviously, we know that Apple and Qualcomm have been engaged in lawsuits around the world. Some have gone in Qualcomm's favor, some have gone in Apple's favor. Is it clear right now which company has the upper hand?
In terms of who's having the upper hand, I mean, you have to look at it from a consumer perspective, or at least that's how I look at it. And right now, Qualcomm is where it's at in terms of 5G technology. They're about a year ahead of Intel. And there's a reason why Apple is unable to likely release a 5G iPhone this year. That's because they are using Intel parts which don't have 5G this year, and they won't have it until probably the beginning or middle of next year. So from that perspective, Qualcomm is winning. Apple is not had banned any phones really in the United States at this point, so they're not really losing either. I would call this a draw at this point.
Tamlin, would you agree with that?
So I think what Qualcomm did get today was it got a pressure point that can sort of force Apple to the table. What Qualcomm really wants is a settlement. It wants Apple to begin paying royalties and Apple's contract manufacturers to begin paying royalties again. And I think this gives it this potential sales ban, even though it's not until 3Q, gives it a potential lever point. And of course, we have an upcoming trial in April that's going to be another huge deal for both companies. But I think for Qualcomm today, it is definitely good for them to get one of the ITC rulings in their favor.
Mark, what are the companies saying at this point about this most recent ruling? Have we heard from them yet?
Now, I mean, the other point about Q3 is when they come out with new iPhones anyways. The iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, the phones at hand here, those came out in 2016. Those are due to probably be discontinued around Q3 anyways. So if that is indeed the case, it doesn't expand to other devices. It's not really going to have a wide-ranging impact. Qualcomm put out a statement, to answer your question, earlier today, praising the judge's decision, but we are yet to hear anything from either side on the second ruling from 15 minutes ago.
So, Tamlin, globally, what is the next big milestone for either one of these companies in this ongoing legal fight?
I alluded to it. There's an April 15th trial scheduled for San Diego, and this is sort of the huge heavyweight bout between the two companies. It's Apple initially filed the lawsuit alleging antitrust violations, breach of contract claims. Qualcomm shot back with claims of its own. So this is a potentially 3-week trial that starts April 15th, and I think that's going to be the next indicator of who may have the upper hand.